Thank you all for joining again. And we've got a few, some very interesting presentations today. Unfortunately, Niranjan Swami, due to health concerns, is not able to join us today. Um, we've had a few devotees who've had to pull out just due to health, but I guess that's one of the risks you take when you invite some of these senior Vaishnavas is they may have some health issues and pull out. And yeah, so first up we have our executive director of ISKCON Deity Worship Ministry, His Grace Devadeva. He'll be doing a presentation on, I've forgotten. Sorry about that. Then I'll be taking a slot for about half an hour. And in that half an hour, what I was planning on doing was I'll revisit the discussion we had when I was filling in for Badri Maharaj when he was in hospital. But I've got a few pictures just to show you some of the things I was talking about. And then what we'll do is we'll move our break and the breakout room half an hour earlier into where Niranjan Maharaj was going to present, and then we'll have a debrief of the breakout room, and then after that we'll conclude with Her Grace Malati Devi Dasi. Okay, so without any further ado and without taking up any more of Devadeva Prabhu's time, we'll hand it over to Devadeva Prabhu. I'll just a bit of an introduction. I think some of you may remember Devadeva from a previous Head Pujari Sanga. Devadeva, as I mentioned, he's the executive director of ISKCON Deity Worship Ministry. That means like he's my boss, and he makes sure that I don't say silly things and stuff like that. He's the head Pujari of ISKCON Durban, and he's been the head Pujari there for many years now. Probably around 20 or so, isn't it, Devadeva?
16.
16, okay, that's close to 20. And he's based, as I mentioned, in South Africa, a disciple of Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj, and very capable devotee. Okay, David, I will hand it over to you. Thank you.
Jai, thank you, Nishan Kamashipu. Could I please be allowed to share my screen?
It's already set up for that.
Okay. Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Today I'm going to be presenting one of our resolutions, our most recent resolution, which is the mood of worship, but darshans, so unusual darshans. If you recall, in 2021, the GBC resolution on the mood of worship was approved or established. And following that, we felt that the mood of worship was needed to be spelled out a little further. Just some background information why we decided to put in the proposal for the mood of worship was that we found that various devotees were in some ways losing the essence of deity worship with that Srila Prabhupada really wanted us to follow. And in doing so, they became a little too lenient in some of the standards. And well, not just the standards, but also in the way they were dressing or concocting different ways to tap into different pastimes of the Lord. So we saw the need to kind of guide the devotees further. And yeah, in doing so, we put in a whole research proposal with the GBC body. So I'm going to go through the resolution itself, and after that, I'll go through an information pack where it just explains what exactly we are discussing. Okay, so 40701 ISKCON Deity Worship Ministry Standards, Mood of Worship, Darshans. That was passed in 2022. So it reads, whereas in 2021, the GBC body made the following statement. That the GBC reaffirms the mood of worship established by Srila Prabhupada, which is to be followed by all ISKCON centers, is the mood of awe and reverence. All worship conducted in ISKCON centers, both regular daily worship and occasional worship, such as festivals, must be conducted according to the standard. All ISKCON leaders are required to ensure that devotees and centers under their care understand and implement worship according to these standards. As such, all practices that demonstrate a different mood of worship are not approved and must be actively discouraged by leaders at all levels. This includes, but is not limited to, 1. Devotees' conduct in the presence of the deities. 2. The way devotees interact with the deities. 3. The manner in which devotees dress the deities. And 4. The different aspects of daily and festival services. Whereas this resolution reaffirms Srila Prabhupada's stated requirement of the mood of worship for ISKCON centers as awe and reverence, whereas it is necessary to define what this mood of worship looks like in the various aspects of deity worship, so devotees understand proper standards. Whereas changing the appearance of the deities conflicts with Srila Prabhupada's stated mood of worship. Whereas every festival brings newer and more creative modifications to the appearance of the deities in some ISKCON centers. Whereas according to Srila Prabhupada's statement in Adi Leela 1450, devotees should not divert their attention to the worship of demigods. Therefore, it is resolved, when observing festivals and dressing of daily darshan, the physical appearance of the deity must not be modified. This includes, but is not limited to, covering the deities' faces with masks, or otherwise obscuring the normal appearance or darshan. 2. Adding limbs to the deities, such as arms, legs, feet, etc. 3. Modifying the appearance of the deities' eyes, either changing the color or the direction they are looking. 4. Dressing the deities as demigods. When temples have an interest in depicting pastimes of the Lord and his associates, this may be achieved via the use of dioramas, pictures, drama, and other means. Okay, so this is the actual resolution itself. Now let me go to the information pack. All right, so we will share these documents with you later on, but basically this was covering the mood of worship that Srila Prabhupada wanted us to be following in ISKCON. And what was established is that Srila Prabhupada on many occasions mentioned that we should not be trying to tap into any other mood except for worshiping the deities in awe and reverence, particularly in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan. So often we see that devotees will come up with the idea of trying to tap into the Vrindavan mood of the deities, which Srila Prabhupada was very much not in favor of. Let me just go down to... So this is just some various quotes from Srila Prabhupada that you can read when we share it with you. So the first part was the conduct with the deities. So we see Srila Prabhupada wanted us to be very respectful in the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here we have a little video. Here we have a little video where we had a devotee who was carrying the deities. I think it was after a Rath Yatra procession. And the devotees were actually dancing with the deities as they were coming out. And you could see that Subhadramaya was severely shaken up, so much so that even some jewelry were falling off the deity. So that definitely is not acceptable. Then moving the deities. So here we have a situation where a certain temple decided to depict a certain pastime. And what they did was they moved Radharani to look at Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada was very strict about this. There was, here we have a quote where Srila Prabhupada installed the deities of Radha and Krishna and named the Nairobi temple. And there, Srila Prabhupada saw that the deities were moved. And he became quite upset about it. And he said, why are they so far apart? And Srila Prabhupada then responded that he doesn't want the deities to be separated in this way. Like basically, we should ensure that the deities are not moved 3 inches apart as they are installed. There's other quotes from Srila Prabhupada as well, where he re-emphasizes that they should not be moved from each other. Here we see that there is another pastime being depicted, where Krishna is braiding Srimati Radharani's hair, but the deities have been moved to depict this pastime, and that is not acceptable. Then we went to the next part where deities were being introduced, paraphernalia, if we can call it that, that isn't actually Vedic, which is not approved for deity worship, like sunglasses and even a beanie. So here, the Pujari specifically said that it wasn't a darshan, but they were just trying it out. Still, though, the pictures were leaked and it went viral. And here we can see then the deities are in sunglasses, which is totally unacceptable. The next part, we're dealing with darshans, like on festival darshans, which are unacceptable. So here we go. The Utsav deities have been moved here onto a little area where they was set up like the Astasakis and Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan, where Srimati Radharani is cooking. So she has a spoon and a little pot in her hands, which is not the normal paraphernalia that Srimati Radharani would be carrying. Generally, the accepted paraphernalia would be flowers, a little bouquet, tulsi leaf, a chamara, like that kind of thing. The next part we're dealing with is the changing the appearance of the deity. This is a black Shamsundar Krishna deity that was painted white. Now, this often happens when it is Chandan Yatra. So when the deities are covered in Chandan, the Chandan color is actually covered. So you lose the appearance of the deity. That's one example. There's more just a little further down. So here we go, where the deity is Krishna is dressed as Vamanadev. You can see there with the umbrella and the chandan that's covering the deity to make him look like Vamanadev. So there's various quotes that substantiate all of this. I'm not going to go through all of them because we're restricted with time. Then the next part we have where Lord Jagannath has been given arms and legs, and he is dressed as Krishna dancing on Kaliya. So that's what the resolution was referring to, about adding limbs and depicting pastimes like that. And the next one, which is a little difficult, because it's the Hativesh darshan, and although Hativesh has been quite accepted amongst our ISKCON temples, or throughout our ISKCON temples, the way in which the mask is created is not exactly in keeping with the traditional way of creating the Hativesh mask. So we see that if we look at these pictures here, the deities' faces have been completely covered or modified. So we see in the first one, it's a total mask that only the eyes are visible. The second one, where the trunks have been added to the face and the complete mouth is covered. And then we see the third one, which is the Mayapur deities, which is more in keeping with how it should be, where the whole face is still visible of the deity.
David, can I just give a small correction there?
Yes, Ram.
The picture of Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, where Jagannath and Baladev have got those trunks on, they actually have a fiberglass mask that completely covers their face, and it's got ears on it and everything like that.
Okay. Which is not acceptable.
Definitely not.
So, well, even in the other picture there, the third one that I spoke about, you can see the Utsav deities, the faces are totally covered. There where my cursor is currently. So then we go to the next unusual darshan. On Nishringa Chaturdasi, some temples cover Lord Jagannath with a mask, making him look like Lord Nrsingadev. So you can see his face is totally covered there except for his eyes. So that's unacceptable. And then we have Chandan Yatra again, where the deity is totally covered to look like Radha Raman with Chandan. So the next part we're looking at again, masks, and where Krishna has been covered by a mask to look like Nrsingadev. You can't even recognize that it's Krishna in any of those pictures. And Radhavani is dressed as Lakshmi. Still continuing, masks covering the deity's faces completely, and extra limbs added. And just bear in mind that some of this are older pictures. Some temples have corrected it, many of which actually have corrected after we have pointed out to them. Here we see Srinathji, who also has been, arms have been added, and it's during the Chandan Yatra time where he is made to look like Nrsingadev. So we have a picture of Radha Raman here. And this is just to show you all that in Vrindavan, how it is traditionally done with Chandan Yatra. A thin outfit made of a very thin muslin cloth is covered, well, is sewn and then put onto the deity And Chandan is only placed over that areas of that cloth. It's not covering the deity completely. If you look at his face, it's still very visible. Now, I fully understand that this is not what has been happening in ISKCON. Chandan has been covering the deities' faces completely, and it's going to take a little bit of correction from our side. But this is which would be more acceptable as compared to covering the entire deities' faces. Then we have a situation where the deity's eyes have been painted to look at each other. This is not the standard way that the deities normally would give darshan, or the way they look. They painted extra eyes and have it on the deity, like stuck onto the deity just for a specific darshan. So also on that point, what this also covers is that the deity's features should not be changed. So often we've seen, as the years go by, the deities were installed with a certain look, and then devotees feel that they need to be changed so that they look fresher, or their eyes have more definition, or a little more detail in them, and they change the way that the deities look. Sometimes it's so drastic that you don't even recognize that it's the same deities. So what this resolution actually covers is that the deities should always be maintained in the same way that they are when they are installed. So much so that when we are doing the COR approvals, the Certificate of Readiness approvals, we store the pictures of what the deities actually look like at installation, so that later on the deity should not be changed. They should always remain looking the same. And then here we see Chandan Yatra again, where the deities have, well, there's two parts to this. One, the Chandan has been changed, the color of the Chandan has been changed. But two, you see Lord Jagannath and Baladeva also dressed as Lord Ramachandra and Lakshman, holding bows and arrows. And again, Chandan and the deity dressed as Lord Ramachandra. Then we come to the part of where we were looking at false arms, or the deities are made to look as if they are seated on a throne. You can see Radharani is seated on a throne. And what you can't see here is that there's also a deity of Purnamasi crowning Srimati Radharani at that time. So tapping into the past time. And also here, it's a swing or throne darshan. So it's altering the appearance of the deity's form. Same here with the swing darshan. The other one here we see Radha Madhava is on a boat, kind of, flower boat. And the same where the Chandan has been changed, the colors of their faces have been changed, and they are dressed as Ram and Lakshman with bows and arrows. Then we come down to a Matsya darshan, where Krishna is dressed, or both of them are actually dressed as fish, and also Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra dressed very simply as if they were in the forest in Ram Leela. Then we see the deities, Krishna and Balaram dressed with bows and arrows, and Krishna dressed as Nrsingadev. And then Krishna dressed as Lord Shiva. then we come to showing Radharani's lotus feet. So there is already position paper where the GBC has discontinued devotees giving darshan of Srimati Radharani's lotus feet. And here we have Radharani dressed as a cowherd boy. And while dressing her as a cowherd boy with the dhoti, well, of course, firstly, she shouldn't be dressed like that. But secondly, her lotus feet are visible. So that should not be done. And then we have again Radharani on Gopastami, dressed as a cowherd boy and carrying a cow. And here Krishna is dressed as a gopi, another pastime. And the same. Here we found the deities are dressed as Michael Jackson. You can see the hats and the long trench coat jackets. And then we have Christmas darshan, Krishna dressed as Santa Claus. And I guess Radharani is Mother Claus. And then we have the Vamanadev appearance day, Vamana Dvadasi, where a young Brahmin boy is worshipped as Vamanadev in front of the deities. So this has been changed, although it's still practiced in Mayapur. The little Brahmin boy is not worshipped in front of the deities anymore. They bathe his feet and offer him different bhoga items, but there's a cloth and it's covering the area where the boy is, and it is not directly in front of the deities. These are pictures of when it was in front of the deities. And lastly, New Year's Eve. So non-traditional Vaishnava festivals should not be introduced. And New Year's Eve is not a Gaudiya Vaishnava festival. So keeping the deities up past their normal time to go to rest should not be done. So, of course, there are alternate ways of celebrating some or all of these different festivals, just not altering the forms of the deities or changing the deity times or the deity darshans. Okay, that brings us to the end. Now, I guess it's time for questions. Mr. Kawashbu, would you like to add anything or correct anything?
Not about correct anything, but just as an overall sort of comment, the presentation is not really focusing on any particular temple or trying to criticize any temple or any devotees, but just to bring to the attention of the devotees practices that it's quite likely that our founder Acharya would not approve of these practices, and therefore, we've used pictures from different places to demonstrate some of these things are happening. And like most of these temples where we've taken pictures from, by and large the worship's quite good. There's just some things that it seems that they're not really quite right. That's all. Thanks, bro.
Jai, okay. Let me see. Hands were raised. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'm not. It's VS.
Devotees with hands raised.
Right.
Yeah, sorry, it's impossible to edit the name for me in my Zoom client. So I have thank you for this presentation. It was very insightful. I have a couple of technical questions. One is regarding, so for instance, in winter, sometimes are such cloths like woolen cloth is added to the deity forms, like assuming that they may be cold, so so to warm them up, so to say, it's sometimes used. Is it appropriate? Is it like not appropriate? And another small question, just to about for dressing Radharani, adding some items which may be considered more modern, for instance, purses or like woman bags. Maybe they can be in style of the dress, but still look like a modern item. Is it appropriate or not?
Okay, so the first question was using some woolen shawls or woolen scarves or something like that for the deities.
Right.
So I think that would be acceptable. But we're not making it or creating it like jackets and hoodies and these kind of things which are non-Vedic. So that would be fine. And the second question was on Radharani carrying handbags. That is not acceptable. Radharani doesn't carry modern handbags. So let us keep it to specifically what Radharani would use as Srila Prabhupada revealed to us.
Can I contribute to that, David?
Yes.
There's a letter from Srila Prabhupada where he mentions to the devotees, he said, it's not good that you're not dressing the deities according to the season. He saw a picture of the deities and it was cold and they didn't have appropriate clothing on. And also at the end of the Navadvip Bhavataranga, Bhaktivinoda Thakur included a short padati. And in the padati, he gives descriptions about the types of clothing they should wear in the summer and the types of clothing they should wear in the winter. So, the deities should be addressed according to the season. So if it's cold, then naturally you would put warm clothing on, the same as you. When you're cold, you put on warm clothing. And the whole idea here is we're trying to worship Krishna as a person. So if he's cold, then give him some warm clothes. If he's hot, then don't put too much clothing on. It's and this is kind of very much about the mood of worship. Also, is to understand we are worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we have to treat him like a person. We have to dress him accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Nishran Guru. So we have Chandrakanti Mataji.
Yes. Krishna, thank you very much. It is very important to know these things. I would like to ask, because sometimes, maybe 2 times per year, I put some veil in the front of Subhadra's face, but it is completely transparent. It doesn't cover all deity, but just to some extent. Is it appropriate or not? Because I saw already that devotees doing like this.
Right. So it's not the traditional way of dressing Srimati Radharani. I mean, Radharani or even Subhadra Devi. So rather, we don't cover her face completely.
I mean, at all, because it is not completely at all. I should not put veil like this, or should
not to cover over her eyes and face like that. And sometimes, we see it in other places, and then we think it's acceptable. Like, I mean, even I've done that previously, but it doesn't mean because some temples have done it that it is acceptable.
Okay.
We can share a letter with you from Banu Swami. I think he wrote it when he was the chairman. We asked him to write a letter, and in the letter, he addresses this idea of doing things because someone else was doing it, and also in the information pack which we'll send out to you, it mentions there's a quote from, actually I think Devadeva, you got this from Nanda Kumar directly.
Yes.
Where Prabhupada had explained to him, just because you see it done somewhere else doesn't mean you should do it in ISKCON. Because like Prabhupada gave us a very, very specific mood of worship. He spent months in Los Angeles training them in every aspect of temple life, the management, the morning program, prasadam, deity worship, everything. And he wanted us to follow that. And he wrote a letter to the head Pujari of Los Angeles a few months after he was there. And he said the greatest danger to our movement will come if you add or change anything in the deity worship. So the idea is not to create our own way of doing deity worship, just follow what the founder Acharya has given us. That's all.
Also, he told Nanda Kumar Prabhu, don't concoct or change anything as well, directly. Thank you. Shamapriya Maraji?
There are a few questions in the chat.
Okay. Let us go to Vijay Radha Mataji first, and then I'll go into the chat. You muted, Mataji?
You're on mute.
Is he a translator? Or
Hare Krishna.
okay.
Thank you very much for all your instructions. They're very valuable. I really appreciate them. I have two questions. I understand that Srila Prabhupada said that in the West, Gaur should always, his chest should always be covered. So we follow that in Alachua, but we don't do that for Siam or Krishna Balaram, because sometimes it's really hot, like 90 something degrees. So we just put garlands and some flower jewelry, and we don't use vests like we use for Kornitai. So first I wanted to know if that is acceptable. And my second question is if it's all right that Radharani sometimes holds an umbrella.
Okay. The umbrella, no. And Nishranka Vachaprabhu, can you just answer about the Gaurnitai? I mean, I know definitely Gaurnitai we don't have him bare-chested, but with Krishna and Balaram.
There's two letters that Prabhupada wrote in this regard. One was to ISKCON Los Angeles, and one was to Washington, D.C., I recall. In one of the letters, he said, Gaurnitai should not go without shirt. And in the other letter, he said, in your Western countries, the deity should not go without shirt. So he's saying the deities, that means all deities. Okay. I mean, and if you look at it, I don't know if you've ever been in Vrindavan in the summer, it's hot. I mean, Alachua is not. I live in a subtropical place, and Alachua is a similar kind of climate, and it's not that hot. It's not hot like Vrindavan or Mayapur. I mean, you can ask Shamapriya what it gets like in Mayapur. It gets, so hot you're just sweating the whole time, like profusely. So it's but yeah, obviously you can use like a really light shirt or a short shirt with short sleeves and things like that. But and Prabhupada repeated this instruction also verbally on a few occasions as well. So that's our general approach, is the deity shouldn't go without a shirt.
Thank you, Nishranka. Okay, so I'm going to the chat. First message is from Sevapriya Maraji. Please explain about decorating the altar surroundings as a boat. As I've been asked to do this. Also, the dressing Radharani as a cowherd or on Gopastami. So, dressing Radharani as a cowherd boy on Gopastami, no. I think I already addressed that in the information pack that we went through. And decorating the altar as a boat, I think whenever we're trying to do something, we have to go back and look at it. Is it within the mood of awe and reverence? We are worshipping Radha and Krishna in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan, and would Lakshmi Narayan be featured in this way? So decorating the altar, I'm not sure if I understand you correctly, but is it the deity as if they are in the boat, or outside of the altar, if the altar area outside is decorated as a boat? So if it's the deity directly, then that would not be acceptable. Nishranka Vachaprabhu, you're raising your hand.
the whole idea is just to keep it within the instructions of our acharyas, particularly our founder acharya, and not start to make up our own methods of worship, our own method of doing things. Yeah, because if we just follow the instructions, Prabhupada guaranteed we'll go back to Godhead.
Right. So then we have the next question from Radha.
Sorry to interrupt. I posted in the chat the letter to Ananga Manjari about the deity should not go without shirt. So
Thank you, Prabhu. So can the Pujari put the garland on shoulder of the deity as Brahmanical thread, or only on the neck? So only on the neck. The garland should not be swinging across like a Brahmin thread. All right, there's no more questions in the chat. And I'm terribly over time. Are there any other questions before we move on? Oh, I see one from Veni Madhava. Adikavi Prabhu. This presentation is available so we can use it to train leaders in the regions. Yes, I think so. We'll share it. Shamapriya will share it.
They'll be uploaded to YouTube.
Okay, it'll be uploaded to YouTube. Okay, thank you, Diva. Oh, there's two hands raised again. Vijay Radha Mataji.
Yeah, I have one more question regarding the shirts on the deities, if they can be sleeveless for the summer, like a vest.
Right.
I mean, not a vest, a full shirt, but without the sleeves.
Right, okay. Nishant Vashpu, you want to answer that?
I'd probably have short sleeves, like they can be quite short, because it doesn't seem to be. I don't know. You don't read about it in things related to Vedic culture, how people have like singlets and things like that. It's usually the top is covered.
Or even looking like waistcoats. It's more the Western world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Devapriya Mataji. If you're speaking, I can't hear you.
Well, maybe some technical.
Sure. Okay. Okay, Devapriya Mataji, you can send me a private message or even in the chat later on if you are able to come on again. Okay, thank you. I think I'm way over time, Nishant Vashpu. I apologize. Oh, there's a message. Oh, there's a question. Is it allowed to have Radha Krishna surrounded by animals other than cows on the altar? So would Lakshmi Narayan have animals surrounding them? Actually, it's tapping more into the Vrindavan mood, which we prefer not to. Yes, there are many temples that have many other animals around the altar, but it's not exactly in the mood of awe and reverence. So no, it sounds like I'm saying no for everything today. So no. Anyway, sorry, devotees. I'm normally not this strict, but thank you, Hare Krishna. Jai.
Oh, Jai Prabhupada.